Hello and welcome to the Unknown Entity Podcast. I'm your host, the Phantom One. You can call me Phantom. With me is my co-host,
Sanchez. Call me Sanchez.
live from a Taco Bell.
Fuck you.
Yep, that's how it goes. Now, on this podcast, we cover many subjects from our week at passing to our weekly, bi-weekly news topics. And then our main topic, today's main topic is going to be Internet Anonymity, Part 1. We're going to discuss the dichotomy between what people consider tech-savvy.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So, first we're going to start off with our week in passing. I think Sanchez can take off this because I can considerably say that I basically didn't do shit.
Well,
didn't do nothing.
I've had a busy week. I've been trying to get a job, trying to get into school, trying to, hide my criminal record.
Yeah, that's always the fun part.
Yesterday, my friend tried to kill himself, and I spent the night in the hospital with him. Today, I went and saw Skyfall last night, and today I went shooting. I've had a busy week.
Let's start with the criminal record.
The criminal record. We'll talk about the criminal record. Well, it's been a pain in the ass. Basically, I've been trying to expunge my record, and it's a funny lie that you're told in high school. Everyone says you can get in trouble as a juvenile and your record is going to be cleared once you turn 18. That is a big fucking lie. I want everyone to know that's a big fucking lie.
Weren't you going to fight it?
Actually, what I found out is that one of the two charges that I had was insufficient evidence to justify. So
you're having the charge removed?
So it was charged by the police upon me, but it was never proven in the court of law. So therefore the charge never stuck. It's not real. They only keep a record of it because they like to keep records. The government, they like records. They like to keep tabs, and every time you go to a government office, they want your fingerprints. And
they spend $1 million a year in filing cabinets. We get it.
Yes, exactly. So it's been a pain in the ass. So I don't have to fight any of the charges, luckily.
That's good.
And
that's good.
So basically, I've delayed expungement based on the idea that I was planning on fighting the charge, and now that I haven't expunged it, I'm trying to get a job, right? And the background check is becoming a problem because I haven't expunged my record yet. So now they're going to have to look at my record. I have to explain everything to my employer.
Oh, this could be fun. You're going to be like, yeah, that one doesn't count technically.
Yeah.
The other one was totally real. I served my time.
That's basically...
But that one, trust me, that one's the lie.
That's exactly what I did for the past hour because I had to write it. I had to write every single charge. I had to explain each charge. And then with a paragraph explaining what happened and why.
Only a paragraph?
About a paragraph. I summed it up, and not.
Well, you don't want to be too long, or else they're not going to look at it.
I only had to explain 2 different events. Honestly.
Oh wait, did you already interview?
Yeah, I have had 2 interviews.
So the only reason you're doing this is they think you're a good enough candidate.
Yeah, they offered me a job.
Okay, so my point about having the only a paragraph no longer applies because they're already invested in you.
Well, basically what happened is I've already explained to the person who offered me the job exactly what happened. And
so you're explaining the corporate.
I'm explaining to corporate, and I don't want to write a huge message to them.
Yeah, they're not going to give a fuck.
They're not going to read it.
They're not going to give a fuck.
I'm just trying to sum it up as fast as possible.
They're going to look at the charge and basically say, is it thievery? Yes, no.
Exactly.
And they're not going to care because you're not operating heavy equipment, right?
No.
If you're operating heavy equipment, then they'll start caring because it's a drug charge.
Exactly. I'm not operating heavy equipment. It's really based on if I'm a thief or not, because I'll be responsible.
Yeah, because that's all they care
money.
about. Because if someone steals from you as a business, over time, that profit loss becomes substantial.
Exactly.
And it becomes a huge problem.
And they've already given me, the morals test where they test you, answer on a scale of 1 to 10. I mean, they give you a bunch of questions based on, is it okay if someone steals?
Is it only stealing things?
Stealing, they ask you a lot of questions about
Or do they ask about empathy?
They ask you about empathy, like if you catch someone else stealing, that kind of thing, if you see that someone, they're having a hard time, they can't afford anything, but you see them steal only $5, is it okay? Or they also ask if someone is a perfect employee, yet they steal $5 in 1 year only, should they be fired?
In 1 year?
Yeah.
Should they be fired?
And I said yes, because that's...
I'd say they deserve to be fired, but the proper way to handle it from a managerial perspective is to reprimand them and see if they change. Because if you've already invested money in an employee and he's performing at his peak, from your perspective, there is no reason to drop that for some fucker off the street who's going to be a complete gamble.
Exactly.
You got to try the reprimands first, and then find out if he does it again. If he does it again, then you got to drop him.
That's a perfect point, because if this employee is making you more money than $5
then he's already paying off his dues, and all he needs is a reprimand to tell, hey, we noticed this, don't do that shit again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because a good employee is far more valuable than the projected loss. And then it's it's 2 strikes and you're out, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
The 1 strike is the 1 strike. And then if another year passes with no strikes, then the strikes reset.
I don't know if they should reset.
It depends on the perspective. If you're in a retail environment where employees last longer, like there's not a high dropout rate, then they should reset, because you're going to be working with that employee far longer, and you've proven that they can change.
Theoretically, far longer. On average, about 3 years is the average people stay in retail.
It depends on the business, right? There's certain retails where I've gone over the past 5 years and the same person's worked there.
That's true. But
so it's purely defined on the company and how the manager runs the company.
Although you make a good point on the survey being that I'm being interviewed, I answered completely that they should be fired.
Yeah, that's if you're not allowed to explain yourself, then that's the choice you should pick. Yeah. But if you choose to explain yourself, it's always the smarter idea to go with reprimands first, especially if it's a good employee. If it's a really bad employee, reprimands, but give a shorter time to prove themselves again.
Well, what do you mean by shorter time? You mean...
So, for the good employee, I said give him a year. Depending on how bad the employee is, you shrink that time. Because what people use is they use their work ethic as a way to determine their probability to commit an incident again.
I wouldn't shorten the time. I would extend it to infinity. Basically, they only have 1 strike, not 2 strikes. If you see what I'm saying,
okay, so I guess
I would say that basically
maybe I worded that wrong.
I would be more strict on them if they were a really bad employee.
Yeah, I think what's happening is I thought it that way in my head, and then I explained it wrong. Explained it? That's a good word. But anyways, criminal records, they're a bitch. Who could have guessed?
Who could have guessed?
So,
don't make mistakes.
Now we're on to the other interesting thing you brought up. A suicide, huh?
Yeah, well, one of my friends, he's young and,
Let's call him Jake.
Let's call him Jake. Yeah, Jake. He's a nice kid. He's actually really nice. He's respectful, and he's a good kid, but the problem is that...
He didn't do nothing.
He didn't do nothing, and he doesn't... kids in high school, they don't know who they are yet,
Oh, so he's still in high school.
Yeah, he's still in high school. He feels lost. He feels like he doesn't know himself. He feels unhappy. And then he recently broke up with this girlfriend. And it's not that the girlfriend made him want to kill himself. It's the fact that she made him a little bit happier, and now he kind of sunk back down to where it was before. And he wanted to, end this sad life or whatever. And it's interesting. You're faced with an interesting situation when this happens to your friend, because you don't know what to say. You want to say, what the heck, man, what are you doing? This isn't right. And it's not right in your mind because you're not unhappy. But you don't know how to talk them out of it. What can you say to change their mind? If they're so committed in their mind that they're ready to kill themselves, what can you say in words that's going to change their mind? I mean, if you could show them, yes, maybe. But, when I was sitting...
I find, with my personal experience... Guilt trips were very effective with me.
With you? Well... Yeah,
so your generic counter suicide thing you see in, the media is always, think about your family, they love you so much.
Yeah.
And the reason why that works is it's a guilt trip. Guilt trips are very effective because humans are social creatures.
Yeah.
So a guilt trip can be effective either way. The thing is sometimes people don't necessarily see it that way.
Yeah.
Right? That implies, the only way that guilt trip is effective is if that person feels like their family has been good to them.
That's true. That is very true.
If they're from a shit family, that does not work.
What's interesting is that all my friends resorted to the guilt trip first. They're like, man, you're gonna hurt, your friends. We're all here for you, and you make us all sad.
Well, that's the way we've been shown to do it.
I know.
To be fair.
But I didn't feel like it was effective. It didn't seem to change him. It didn't even seem to phase him at all, you know? Like, he already knows that people are going to get hurt.
Does he like candy?
I don't know if he likes candy. Not so much.
So, the way I keep myself off of it a while back is with stimulants. Legal stimulants. That are far more legal than that.
Well,
also known as sugar.
Sugar is very legal, but also very bad for you.
It is very bad for you, but it's better than death, and it gives you the second chance to actually figure shit out.
That's true. That is very true, you know?
It's just like...
It's a lot better than my old, you know...
A lot better than the weed and drink.
Yeah, well, drink yourself to sleep.
Yeah, no, that's bad.
That's very bad.
That's very bad. So, see, the difference is sugar is something you can fix, kinda, right? You can get diabetes. Diabetes is somewhat... It's preventative treatment, right?
Yeah.
You drink yourself to death, you're dead. You kill yourself, you're dead. So you take drugs, you might die. Quite different ways.
Well, you might die on the inside. I mean, mentally...
Depends on the drugs.
Yeah, that's true.
Or you become crazy like fucking G-Time Johnny on YouTube. Which I'll show you later.
That guy.
He's a very interesting fellow. But that's LSD. Becomes some crazy guy who talks shit on YouTube. Pretty funny for other people, but you know something's fucked up.
I mean, but when you're in the moment, when you're sitting there next to them, and he was in a hospital, you know, attached to all his machines, and you want to say something, and you know you need to say something because you can't let him just go back to that. You don't want him to feel depressed. You try telling him, we're all here for you, and you can't make it about you. You got to make it about them because the problem is not you, it's them. You don't want to keep telling them.
Yeah.
You know, think about us, think about your friends, because that's like too selfish. It just reinforces them. Yeah. So anyway, well, it just reinforces like their unhappiness. It makes them feel even less a part of everything. You know?
Yeah, it can.
It makes them feel even more alone.
It's a very difficult thing to think about, and I mean, there's a reason why people get specific training to handle attempted suicides.
Yeah.
Because it requires a lot of special conditioning and special training to be able to understand exactly what that person's going through and the way to disarm the situation. Like, just me, I'm probably not going to be able to tell you, because all I can tell you is from my experience of being suicidal, and that's going to be completely different than Jake's.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and my experience is very different than his experience. But, you know, I try to tell him my experience, give him some perspective, and try to explain him how I see life now, and how I see life as a gift. I'll never take life for granted after that. But I don't know if his mind has been changed from what I said. And I still feel, you know, unsure right now how I could change his mind, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for me also, a big part of it was laziness.
That's true. Too lazy.
too lazy to do it.
For me, well, I got too drunk and passed out before I drank myself to death, you know?
Yeah. I guess that works.
I guess, you know, I just drank too fast, so I ended up just passing out, and that was good for me in a way because I was too drunk. That's modern
right
for you.
Let's move to a lighthearted topic.
Yeah, less.
We're gonna move to our second segment, our maybe here, maybe not segment of news. So this week, everybody's been chatting about Donald Trump and his all Muslims comment. Now, I know where I stand on this. How about you?
Me? Oh man, I can't take Trump seriously, honestly, personally. So everything he says, I don't take to heart very much. But I stand very opposed to Trump's views, personally. You know,
I think he does too.
Yeah.
What's funny is when Trump started, a lot of the Gamergate crowd kind of figured out what he was about, which was he basically an internet troll but real life. So,
yeah.
Interestingly enough, he has his internet trolliness, but the mainstream media could not figure that out.
Took him too seriously.
And then suddenly, just like last week, The Daily Show figured it out. They managed to figure it out. Now, the question is, where's it going to go now?
Yeah.
Every time we've seen this happen, he goes out there, he makes some sort of really generalizing statement to try and get rid of his fame, saying, I've done what I've claimed here to do, which is to get the lulz. And every time they're like, yeah, we support him.
I don't understand it. I don't understand it. How he has followers. I mean, people like us, we look at what Trump says and we laugh and thinks it's funny, but people think like take him very seriously as like a real leader.
But like, here's the thing: I don't think he'd be able to win a second election.
I don't think,
and I'd rather have him than Hillary Clinton. I
don't think he could win a first election personally.
That's good too, as long as Clinton doesn't win as well.
I don't want Clinton to win.
We don't want the corporate shill in the White House again.
Here's the problem I'm faced with. I love my guns. But I also can recognize that a lot of Bernie Sanders' ideas are better than other candidates. A lot of everyone else is more fucking lunatic. And Bernie Sanders has better ideas for the general people.
Yeah.
But he does support gun control, which I think is lunacy as well.
Well, I mean, like, if I were in office, I'd do gun control too. But the first thing I'd do is revoke all previous gun control. Yeah. Because all of it's dumb shit.
It's very ineffective.
You need someone who's actually familiar with firearms to be able to rewrite it.
Absolutely.
And then even then, it's probably become dumb shit because the NRA is going to dip their dick in it.
You know, it's ironic that the people who always scream gun control are the people who know the least about guns. They don't own guns.
Yeah. What's interesting is the Daily Show's host is very liberal, and they actually did a gun control bit, and what they failed to do, like they were trying to do it kind of, like, they're really good somehow at maintaining journalistic ethics, but they still try and put a slant on it.
They do, absolutely.
So they did a gun control bit, and they tried to push their slant, which is basically annulling the argument if there's more good guys with guns, that's not really going to change much, which is true. However, they still managed to show how much of an idiot they are when it comes to handling a firearm.
Yeah.
Because they took someone who's basically never handled a firearm before and made him get a concealed carry license. And just the first moment with this black sheriff who looks like a badass, like, I don't know if he's a sheriff, but he had patches, he had multiple patches, he was EMT and stuff. Looked like a badass. And you just look at this guy, and he's not taking this guy's shit. Like, normally, like, you imagine for these comedy shows, they come in there and they talk to them and like, okay, we're doing a comedy show, we're gonna have some jokes, you know, try and run with it. This guy was not taking any of it. Like, when they hand you the fake gun to make sure you understand how not to point the gun at people, you know, and he's pointing at him, he's like, no.
No, sir.
Took it super seriously.
I don't know how to handle the debate of gun control, because people who are on the side of gun control, they refuse to listen to the
both sides do.
Yeah, that's true. It's very bipolar, which people recognize that.
It's extremely bipolar. Yeah. The liberals who want gun control, their end perspective, like the way they argue for it, is they never argue for it in a way that actually makes logical sense, that doesn't end up on that slippery slope fallacy, where it's just like, either it's going to go completely gone, or it's going to be completely ineffective.
Absolutely.
And thus far, it's been swaying towards the ineffective scale.
Definitely very ineffective. Well, the problem is, they make these laws, right? And laws are, you know, they're written. They're in the written word, they're in the spoken word. But you
written word, never spoken.
But that's true. I know what you're saying.
They have different contexts.
I understand, of course. But the problem is that these guns aren't just going to disappear. There's, 300 million guns in the United States right now, and they're not going to disappear. And making certain guns illegal is not going to make them disappear. And
America's already busted its nut inside the gun pussy.
Exactly, and that's not going to disappear. You can't undo that. The guns are still here.
It's already 6 months pregnant. Yeah. You can't do much.
Exactly, you can't back out now. And making... Yeah. So...
Well, I think we can get some more. We can get some keks instead of continuing this. Yeah. We can make this a completely different episode because we can go forever on this.
That's true.
We can start pulling up information. We can start doing crazy shit. So we're gonna move into the second part of our news story, which is something I saw develop just today, actually, on December 12th, 2015. I saw this one size 28 model who was being a complete bitch to... Well, I mean, she's obviously a feminist because she's a plus-size model. Most of them are. because, fat shaming. Ooh.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the interesting thing is she created a non-body shaming t-shirt campaign that was supposed to go towards a charity.
Yeah.
Now, tons of people bought into this. However, a lot of them never received their product. And the charity never received a donation from them.
Really?
And when people started questioning her about this shit, she just instant blocked them, typical feminist way. Yeah. So now we've got Mike Krinovich, who is kind of a lawyery type.
Okay.
And he's been known previously for supporting people who have been in these types of issues.
Okay, so he supports people that are con artists.
No, opposite. He supports the victims of the con artists.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
He helps put together class action lawsuits for this type of thing.
Okay.
So after this news dropped off on Imager, just a couple hours later, he put out a call for anyone who's been in this situation because it's obviously illegal. Mm-hmm. Because you're getting paid to do a job, but you never do the job.
Yeah.
You never. I can't remember the correct term. Forgive my legalese isn't that good.
Okay, go on.
But so he puts out the call, and within an hour, he says, "Good thing I've got enough people. I think we got a case." So it's going to be interesting to watch this develop within the passing weeks and see how crazy this gets.
Yeah, I actually, just kind of elaborating on my past knowledge, I saw something on the internet. Basically, it was a feminist supporting shirt, supporting higher wages for females. But then it shows how the workers that produce these shirts themselves are barely making less than $1 over in another country. And even in that other country, it's below minimum wage for them. They can barely live off of what they're being paid for. So, I mean, it's ironic.
Minimum wage is an interesting concept.
It is.
I saw you do a Facebook post saying, if you don't want to get paid minimum wage, you don't have minimum skills.
Yes, I agree with that.
A lot of liberals are arguing for minimum wage to be this somehow livable thing. Yeah. And everyone who doesn't say that just says, oh, well, you've never lived in that situation, blah, blah, blah. Life experience is the most important thing. But the thing is I can totally see this as being an arguably perspective either fucking way. Because the way I see it, a lot of the problems the poorest people have, they're misdiagnosing it towards a too low minimum wage. The minimum wage does need to rise because it hasn't risen in too far long.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't need to be $15 an hour.
Absolutely not.
And every company doesn't need to be paying a livable wage.
Agreed. I agree with that.
Especially like fast food. Now, a lot of restaurants have been choosing to take on a non-tip environment. And their profit margins have gone up because of it. I think that's probably the best thing. Because your cashiers, if they're not stressed out, worried about if they're going to get tips enough to pay the rent tomorrow,
absolutely,
they're going to be more productive employees.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But regardless, back to my original point. You've got this minimum wage, and they're arguing because they're too poor, it's a misdiagnosis. It's a diagnosis because the real problem is the wealth gap.
Okay.
The rich people are so rich that all the money's up there, and the middle class is disappearing, and all the middle class is going into the lower class. Mm-hmm. They're not going up into the higher class, they're going down.
Yeah, that is a real problem.
So the poor people who are already in the lower class are now extra lower class.
Uh-huh.
And then the middle class is now the lower class.
But by raising the minimum wage to a ridiculous height is only going to make the gap higher, honestly. I mean, it's gonna and no.
So the reason why you want to raise the minimum wage, but you don't want to raise it too much, is if you raise the minimum wage, then you stimulate the economy. Because people suddenly have disposable income. If you have disposable income, you buy shit. You buy shit, that's money in the economy progresses forward. Okay. The only problem is that this is a temporary solution to bigger problems. Traditionally, in pre trickle down economic policy, thanks Reagan, it used to be a fix for inflation, which is odd when you think about it because you're putting more money into the system in theory. But really what you're doing is you're using wealth that's already there within the entirety of the economy to re-stimulate itself.
Redistributing.
You're redistributing. And before it trickled down, this was actually a very effective thing. Because you ensured that even if the inflation goes high enough, the average person doesn't feel its effects. Mm-hmm. To a ludicrous degree. Like riety degree.
Yeah.
Right? Riety. To riot.
Yeah.
My words.
That's another day.
I know, seriously.
Yeah.
So, I guess my point is, we should totally raise it, but until we get rid of the economicist who's been working with every single president since Reagan, who has always been a supporter of trickle-down economics, we're never going to see a factual change. Because very few millionaires and billionaires actually spend enough money to re-stimulate the economy in the way it's been designed to re-stimulate. Mm-hmm. Only people like Elon Musk have been doing so, because they've been putting money into industries that have been failing for years.
But it was interesting to me, what you're telling me is a more enlightened view of the problem. And I'll give you a view of the problem from less enlightened quarters of the world. A lot of these people that pushing for minimum wage, they live this minimum wage life, and they want to make more, so they want to make more money, of course. Mm-hmm. My problem with that is that there's lots of ways. I think that's wrong, actually.
I think the people pushing for a higher minimum wage, like the $15, which is the number we've got, those are college students who are already going to the best universities. They already have money.
Theoretically.
They're arguing from this perspective because someone's put in their mind that college is not a place of learning, it's a home. College is not a home. It should never be a home. Mm-hmm. Whenever you hear some SJW fucking dumb fuck yell at a professor, it's always using the arguments, this is my home.
Okay. Alright. College students. I mean, yes, that's the
college students have been the ones that pushed it. Mm. That's how the general populace locked on to that $15 number. Yeah. Because that's what the Black Lives Matter protests that happened recently put forward. Mm-hmm. And then the public, who are easily swept into their ideology, and ideologies have propaganda, you pull in the normally silent majority into your view.
Well, but here's the thing: people, they want to live off of minimum wage. They think that minimum wage should be a livable amount of money. It should be bare minimum, right? But you shouldn't be able to support 5 kids and a mortgage.
See, it used to be
if you can make sacrifices and live off of minimum wage. Mm-hmm. If you live with your parents, if you if you don't go
it's
and buy
supposed to be for people
car,
our age.
If you don't go buy a sports car, I mean, a lot of these people that we run into that I get in arguments with, they moved out and they're barely 18. They already moved out, and the argument is, well, I had to pay rent and I had to pay for school. Well, you could save money in a lot of ways.
Then, the counter argument by the left, which has become basically just morality at this point, is, well, what about those people who were kicked out of their home?
Yeah, that is a morality.
It's completely moral, and the problem is economics are not moral. You cannot government on a purely economic scale.
Yeah. Every
government that does so fails. Because morality is such a finicky bitch.
Everyone's different.
Everybody's different a little bit on it, and then past that, morality changes with technology.
Absolutely true. Well, and with time. Time. Not just with technology, but with time.
It used to be fucking kids was okay. Now it isn't.
No, it isn't, exactly.
That's how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be that...
I'm not arguing that you should fuck kids. It's just a point I'm making.
Well, it used to be that 24-year-olds could marry 14-year-olds. Like, that used to be a thing. Now it's not okay.
Still is in some parts.
Yeah, in some parts of the world that's still okay. Morality is different with everyone.
Yeah, it's different cultures as well.
And as for...
There's so many factors that it just becomes kind of pointless to be so finicky about the finest points.
As for the people that have been kicked out, that you say, they can make it work. People immigrate. People immigrate with nothing on their nothing but clothes on their backs, and they still make it. Yes. If anyone really wants to,
the good immigrants
succeed,
do.
If anyone really wants to succeed and make enough to live a leisure life, not just living with their parents and living minimum wage, they will. If they have the drive and the initiative to increase their value as an employee, as an individual, they will make it happen. And that's what really matters to me. That's why I argue against raising the minimum wage too high. Of course. I do think that realistically the minimum wage needs to be raised to about $9 an hour, $9.50.
Well, I mean, it hasn't been adjusted in years. It really needs to, because inflation, even though inflation has decreased extremely, it's still increased since the last time minimum wage jumped. Mm-hmm. It's about time.
It's true.
It's just kind of a fact of the economics of the situation. It's been long enough that it kind of needs to happen, because the inflation rate and the worth of the American dollar is at a point where that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It does need to be raised.
To maintain the status quo. Not to improve, but to status quo instead of digress.
Although I do wonder if the protesters, the ones that are fighting for $15 an hour, know that they're never going to get $15, but they're shooting high on purpose. I think they're aiming high so that people will settle for, it's almost like a bartering thing. They're trying to fight.
The thing is like, it would make sense if it was a logical debate, but it's not a logical debate. It's an emotional debate.
That's true.
Like, if it was a logical debate, I'd shoot high too, because that's basic bargaining.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same point, well, actually, I probably wouldn't shoot high, because I understand that I wouldn't want to shoot high, because that could cause problems. But either way,
mm-hmm.
From their perspective, it's completely emotional. It's completely emotional.
Yeah,
Someone made a shit swastika, so let's throw a hissy fit. And the $15 an hour was basically just a bullet point on the list of demands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Honestly, it is a very emotional argument. All their arguments.
It's entirely emotional.
All their arguments is it's hard. It's hard for us. It's hard for people.
Yeah,
it's hard
and
for
then
them.
If you ever try and call them out and tell them to provide not even just physical evidence, just evidence, period,
mm-hmm.
then you're suddenly a white supremacist.
Suddenly,
even if you're not white.
And suddenly you're you don't care. You're a selfish person. You don't.
Mm-hmm.
No,
it's the same thing the feminists have been pulling for years. Now just black people are using it.
Exactly.
That's basically the only difference.
Exactly.
Instead of women, it's blacks. That's how it works.
They're just trying to pull the you're selfish, it's all about you card. But no, sometimes it's more about the bigger picture.
Well, it's not, like, for Black Lives Matter specifically, it's not even you're shellfish. It's, oh my god, your ancestor from hundreds of years ago might have. Because because they just presume that you had an ancestor who was enslaving people back then.
Mm-hmm. Seriously.
I am English, mostly. I know when my family made it over to the United States, which was before then, but we were Canadian during the Civil War.
Well,
so
yeah, seriously.
Then we moved to the U.S. So, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not sure if we've ever owned slaves. Because no one gives a fuck about Canadian history, frankly.
It's kind of irrelevant whether you.
It is irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant because it's been centuries.
Exactly.
No one gives a fuck anymore. They are dead, and they are very, 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 very dead. Absolutely. They have been dead for a long time.
And their ideas have been dead for a long time, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, if you were to discuss, like Martin Luther King era stuff, then you might have a little bit of a case. But on the same point, those people are mostly gone. Or they're too old to really give a fuck.
Ironically, as well, those people with those Martin Luther King era ideas would definitely not approve.
The freaking black people in the Martin Luther King era who were protesting against the establishment, they had a very sensible idea on things. Mm-hmm. They saw an injustice, and they decided to fight it logically, rather than emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Emotional did ply into getting a lot of the white people to help them, but that was just a tool to leverage the overall logical argument.
Mm-hmm.
Because, what's the name? Nelson Mandela, one of the things he said that struck me the most is you can never win a racial situation by taking power away from somebody.
Absolutely.
You remove someone's rights, you're going to cause even greater conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And every time you look at either feminists or Black Lives Matter, all of their arguments are taking away other people's rights.
And giving it to themselves.
And giving more power to themselves.
Uh-huh.
And the issue is, they built this structure of such fragility over being who's more oppressed, that the power that goes to themselves isn't even guaranteed to go to themselves. It's a system that's going to bite them in the ass really fucking fast.
Yeah, seriously, they're closing down on themselves. They're taking they're just taking rights away from everybody. They don't even realize it. They're making life harder for everyone.
So I guess a good point for us to do now is to transition, because we've gotten way off topic.
We're good at that.
We've dipped our toes into some things that we might talk about later. Undoubtedly so. Now, we're going to move over to our main topic. Internet anonymity is the way I'm going to pronounce it.
Elaborate.
Elaborate. Okay, so from my experience of the internet, anonymity has been an incredibly important thing to maintain. You want to maintain this anonymity because it protects you. Now, one of the first things I remember you doing on the internet, besides RuneScape, is Facebook. And obviously with Facebook, there's a pretense of using your actual name. Mm-hmm. Now, this was a huge internet debate when Facebook first launched, because a lot of the older internet people think anonymity is the best thing about the internet. Mm-hmm. It's called the information age, for God's sakes. Yeah. You want to remain anonymous. Fucking hell, this is hard to say. Anonymous, thank you. They're Anons. Remember that. They want to remain anonymous because it provides protections against their right to speak.
Yes, absolutely.
If you're posting on a forum and you get blocked, all you need to do is make another forum under another pseudonym. Mm-hmm. Then you get to say your point again. It's like, and the only way people have been fighting against this is in the face of harassment. But it's always been harassment of ideals. Very rarely have I ever seen actual harassment occur on the internet. But, I mean, like, how do you see anonymity on the internet being you, Facebook man?
How does it apply to me? Mm-hmm. Which is interesting. I've never really used internet. I never considered it as a necessity. Mm-hmm. I've put my name out there. I've put my ideals out there under my name, and I've never thought of it that I should remain hidden. Because I don't know. In my experience, people state their ideas. You know, that they don't want to be fake or hiding behind this wall. They want to be, have a face to their ideas. And I've always thought of it. I've always viewed the internet that way, but it is recognizable that the internet is full of danger in a way that people have a lot of power on the internet, and you need to recognize that. Sometimes being invisible on the internet is absolutely crucial. That's why there's some places as like Facebook where you show your face, and some places like
if it stays like that, that's probably perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. Having our two separate little internets. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the way it's always been, like, between 4chan, Reddit, and Tumblr. Yeah. There's the occasional crossover in between if Tumblr decides to create a hissy fit. 4chan kicks their ass, usually. That's how it ends up. You can't out-shitpost a professional. But, I mean, like, anonymity from your perspective, it's never really been a consideration. Uh-huh. And because of this, how would you say your experience of the internet has been?
It's been different because, my debates that I'm faced with, the ideas that I put off, they're often conflicted by people that I know versus people that I don't know. And that will change the way they speak to you, absolutely. I think when you're speaking to someone, an invisible person, and you're speaking to someone that you can't see either, you have no idea who they are, you tend to be a bit more blunt, a bit more...
vitriolic?
Yeah, you could say that too. And you may be more straightforward in some ways, so it has its pros and its cons. Whereas in my experience, people have been less direct in their ideas. They want to preserve their image, their reputation, so that they're more reserved on what they say and how they say it, and they're definitely... I like to argue in a more intellectual level, so I don't bother arguing with people that don't understand and aren't very respectful. So, it's gone both ways. In my experience, I'm more comfortable with people that I know.
Now, the interesting question you gotta ask yourself is, have those people been actually disrespectful? Or is that just a way of speaking you're unfamiliar with?
Some people have been disrespectful, and they don't care about your opinion or my opinion.
And you can tell us because you know them personally?
Because I know them personally. I know,
Okay.
yeah, I know these people personally. I've met them before. I've known them, I've known them previously. Definitely more than the average person.
So what we've established
They're not
here
strangers.
is the people you're arguing with are in the same internet mindset as you are, where they think in the sense that they are that person when they're talking online.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why I interjected with that, if it's kind of like a different language, is because I've been more internet from the sense of non-Facebook perspective, more anonymous perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times on the internet, vitriol is just kind of normal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, someone calls you a fag, you tell them to fuck off. And it's like saying hello.
It's a normal thing.
It's very normal.
Uh-huh.
Nazi flags? Pfft, whatever.
Yeah.
Post that shit everywhere.
It's a lot. Those obscene things are a lot more normal.
Tits.
Tits are very normal. We love tits. I wish that there was more tits on Facebook.
Yeah. So Facebook is a very interesting way, like a lens into the situation. Now we're going to interject what we actually said what the main topic was going to actually be at the start, and that's tech savviness. So a lot of older people regard our generation as being very tech savvy. Now, my experience with working with both you and our other friends, who we're going to leave nameless for now,
Okay.
have been iffy on that subject.
Well, I would definitely disagree with what old people see. The general population of my age group are not very tech savvy at all. I mean, yes, we know how.
I wouldn't even call them internet savvy.
See, here's the thing. Like, I would more define us, compare us to the iPhone type of people. We like things easy for us, so we want.
You want a very strict, rigid experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Where the rules are very set.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And that's kind of how Facebook plays into this.
Yes.
Because Facebook's a very regimented system when you think about it.
It is.
Unlike Reddit, which has its own rules, but for the most part, you're going to find a child fucking subreddit somewhere.
Exactly.
Or 4chan, where there's basically no rules.
Uh-huh.
Or, I guess, 8chan or Infinity Chan now, since 4chan shit the bed. Regardless of whichever shitposting site you use, there's that major gap between how people view the internet and how that affects their use of technology. Since technology and the internet are basically becoming so heavily interlaced now.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with cell phones becoming ever more prevalent.
Yeah.
You're starting to see ever more use of internet.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, one thing you just brought up a good point is that cell phones, people have their identities on these cell phones. Their emails are tied with all their accounts that they have to make for everything they start out with.
So here's my theory on the situation. A lot of these old people, they're seeing some infant play with a fucking iPhone.
Yeah.
And they're saying, wow, they're so smart, they're so tech savvy. It's a fucking iPhone.
They don't know.
That is the easiest input device I've ever seen.
Exactly what I'm trying to say.
I want to see that infant play around with a trackball and somehow manage to play an FPS with it. If you can play Counter-Strike with a trackball, fucking props.
Exactly.
But I doubt an infant can.
Exactly.
Nor can I doubt that the infant would be able to properly Google.
That's the reality of tech savviness. Absolutely. It's that we...
I think it doesn't exist, frankly. I think the way they view it just doesn't exist straight out. I think it has to be a learned skill. Sure, you're starting younger learning it, but you're not learning it in a helpful way because you're only learning the iPhone mentality of it. You're not learning the actual mentality of it, which is freedom of information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because Apple censors the living shit out of everything they can, and they are very strict and regimented. And so is Facebook, and Twitter's starting to get to that point too. Every social media platform that people majorly use is very regimented. And this leads to this idea that people are smart technology when they actually don't understand a single itty bit of it.
Yeah, because all this stuff is being run without them knowing. All these things go on behind the scenes, you could say. All the strings and wires and all the coding and everything. We don't know anything about why everything works, but we know how to use it. Whereas someone who's tech savvy
that's even debatable.
knows why it works and knows how it works. That's the reality of tech savvy. We may know how to. We may know how to. Let's say like you could say like we ride in taxis around the world of tech savviness. We don't drive our own cars. We let someone else drive us.
Yeah, and you only stay in the upper class parts of town.
Exactly. That's a good point too. We stay in the less, in the better looking, more safe parts of town, where it's a lot more user friendly. You could say,
And that's the thing. User friendliness has a big impact on this. Like, Facebook used to be very easy to figure out. But now, if you jump into it, it's still kind of easy to figure out, but it's got a lot more complexity to it. Mm-hmm. Which I think is a good thing. I think it should get even more complex, so that if the Facebook people ever decide to dip their toe in the actual internet, they'd be able to figure themselves out a little bit. Mm-hmm. Rather than be some old guy floundering around like a fish. Now, we're all gonna call them shitheads either way, but that's just gonna prove if they can handle it or not.
That's true. That is true. People, the majority of people that are iPhone users, you could say the iPhone people, the iPhone crowd, they're a lot more soft. They're not prepared because we're so used to everyone using their real name and not saying these certain things because they don't want to tarnish their reputation.
Yeah.
Whereas you're used to people that don't care about what they say because there's no reason to care.
And there's very few actual reactions that can be taken on you for saying this shit. Mm-hmm. Besides a ban, which is fucking whatever, unless you're IP banned. But, that's a different matter. But now we have these interesting things where the crowd that you come from are now a vocal majority.
That's the ironic
Well, maybe not a majority. They're a vocal minority, but they view themselves as the majority, right? And they want the internet to be like Facebook, all of it.
I would say like this. I would say that imagine a crowd of people, and the majority of people are whispering, and then there's a small group that are just yelling. And
yeah, it's a vocal minority.
Exactly what
That's
I'm saying.
That's the concept.
Yeah. We are the loud. We yell loud, and we want what we want. Whereas the people in the background, they're more mono. They don't.
And hey, the people who usually shout about this thing are also the people who shout about other things that are obviously kind of... Like, we all know that feminists have a severe, harsh reputation on the internet. And it is very well earned. Yeah. Because they have a very interesting way of social guilt. If they see someone who's done wrong, they figure out who they are through whatever anonymity they have. If they're anonymous, they don't care. They're going to figure out where that guy lives and where he works. And then they're going to take away that job from him, and they're going to try and make sure he can never get a job again. Mm-hmm. And that's why feminists have a bad reputation. Because they breached, basically, the holy part of the internet. The holy concept that basically makes the internet a thing that's worth having.
Exactly. They've crossed the barrier from the people that recognize... that put out their name and the people that don't put out their name in these places. They're trying to create this bridge that people don't want. They're more like thieves jumping across from building to building. When everyone, they're more like intruders into this world that they're not welcome into, and they.
I would list them more just because I know more about how feminism worked.
Yeah,
I'd say they're more like a better analogy would be a virus going into a person's body. Because they use such dogmatic speech and they use their propaganda to the maximum. Mm-hmm. The way they do it is they pick different cliques in the internet and they fucking infect them. Mm-hmm. Like, Atheism Plus. This was a big thing that went down a while back. Like a long while back. And they really drove a spike straight through the atheist community. Either you became a feminist, or you're a misogynist now, and you don't get to speak. So now, there's that massive divide in the atheist community, and everybody who was an atheist, who was there during this, and recognized it, has a major, hate boner for feminism. Because they fucking earned it.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And that's what Gamergate was. They dipped themselves into gaming, infected a bunch of places, and they start breaking down relationships. Mm-hmm. And if it really weren't for that one guy saying, hey, my former girlfriend used to beat the shit out of me and fucked a bunch of dudes who gave good reviews on our video game,
You know what's interesting? The very word feminism is very one-sided. If it was about equality, it wouldn't be called feminism.
Well, that's why whenever someone asks me if I'm a feminist, I always say I'm a humanitarian. I don't debate feminism at all. Because I know that's a fucking shithole that if you fucking step down, that's ruining a relationship, period. Mm-hmm. They're going to force you down that shithole, but it's nice to let everybody around you know that you really didn't want to talk about it.
You didn't want to go down with them.
Because we have a word for that. We have a word for equality. It's humanitarianism. Mm-hmm. You're a human, and you like other humans. You want other humans to be good too.
You want everyone's life.
This is a fucking Renaissance idea that just kind of disappeared. Under all the chaos of the fucking communist revolutions, and then feminism decided, those worked, why don't we try it?
Yeah, seriously, that's what they're trying to do.
I mean, everything they grab comes from communistic principles. Marxist principles, I guess, is the better way to say it.
Yeah, Marxist.
Like, even first wave. I used to think that it was only third wave that was really hitting the shit. But now I've kind of realized that all of them were bad.
Yeah.
They were bad from the start. Very few parts of this was good. Mm-hmm. Erin Pizzi was good, and she ended up getting kicked out by the rest of the group because she wasn't radical enough.
Agreed. It's definitely a radical idea.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like,
it's very extremist.
When Sargon of Akkad interviewed Erin Pizzi, one of the stories that really struck me the most was her first time visiting a feminist conference, where it was just some lady in a house invited other ladies to come talk about it. And it was almost like an indoctrination. It was like a table, and there was a picture of Chairman Mao mounted on the wall. And they just started spouting shit.
You know,
and she ducked out of there because she saw right through it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I guess that's enough for that conversation. We're going to move on to our fourth segment, which is story time. We're going to tell some random story from sometime in our past, and we're going to see if it's anything worth a fucking damn talking about. Okay, you're the one with the interesting tales.
Well, you have to have a subject for me to think of something.
I don't know. You did drugs at some point.
Okay, well, I'm going to talk about electrocution too.
You want to talk about electrocution? Okay,
yeah.
let's talk about it.
Let's talk about when I was a wee lad.
A wee lad.
I had this little miniature safe. Not safe. A little miniature locker, like a store.
Yeah, it's the locker safe thing. I remember that.
Yeah, you remember that? Okay, so I had imagine a soldering wire. I had found some of my dad's soldering wire, and I was using it, don't ask me why, to drag around the locker / safe. And as I was walking by, I was trying to get behind a chair, and the wire slid behind, in between one of those things you plug into the outlet that gives you more outlets, like
power strip.
A power strip, basically, you could say, but it's like it's against the wall, and it connected together with one of the wires or two of the wires. And then instantly you see the whole wire instantly light up with electricity. Luckily it was soldering wire though, because that wire instantly melted and lost connection.
So it managed the arc into your soldering line, and then it just fucking melted the line.
Yeah, it was really cool, and then it burned my hand a little bit, but only for a split second, and it didn't electrocute me long enough to hurt me because luckily it was soldering wire.
Yeah, let's see. Houses are 120 volts.
120 volts. Yeah, I think that's the.
Yeah, it's your house electrical system. 120 volts.
That means you need that much to power all the different appliances.
Yeah, all the different shit
appliances
in there
and such.
Yeah,
interesting experience. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, I guess we'll save all the shit of our friends getting tased for later episodes.
Oh. Well, I do know I have one good taser story, but I could...
We can hold it off.
Okay,
we can hold the tasers off. We can wait until we talk about policing.
Okay, I like policing.
When we talk about police, we'll talk about tasing.
Oh, man.
And then I can talk about fucking school district cops.
Oh, my favorite kind of cops.
Oh, aren't they fun?
God,
so
they're the worst kind. I had to talk about them today in my reports.
Yeah, I bet.
I had to elaborate on the...
Because you were caught by a school cop.
Yeah.
Now, that's different. That's a school cop. I'm talking about the district cops.
Oh.
You know, they're basically security guards, but not those cops.
Yeah, well, that's interesting too. I was at the courthouse, trying to get copies of my records, and these cops, they're officers. They're not just officers. They're sheriffs. They're like,
yeah,
they're a bit higher than just standard officers.
They're probably not sheriffs.
No, they say
because sheriff is an elected position.
Yeah, I don't know.
Unless they elect themselves in, and then just have as many as they want.
I don't know how it works, man, because their jackets say sheriff on it.
Well, it's probably just because they're sheriff's department.
Yeah.
Just issuing their department, right?
Yeah, sheriff's department. Okay, so the sheriff's department is probably a higher level department in...
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how cop stuff works enough. When we talk about policing, I'll do research.
Yeah, seriously.
Ask someone.
But I don't understand why they need to assign real police officers to, sit around and guard the doors of the courthouse.
Of the courthouse?
Yeah.
Because they've had recordings in the past of people trying crazy shit in the courts. I mean, like, I've never shown you these videos, but I'm totally going to after this, of these people giving these living man arguments where they make up some fucking ridiculous legal bullshit.
Yeah.
Saying that they are a citizen of this earth, not of these countries. You cannot laws do not apply to me or some shit.
Okay.
Ridiculous bullshit. But that shit happens. And if that shit happens, what else happens? Some guy gonna pull his dick out on the judge's counter? Yeah, probably. I guess just gonna have to pull him off the counter.
Well, in the past year, there was one really big incident of a really big, an islander, Pacific Islander, a Tongan gang member.
Oh boy!
Leaping over the stands and trying to attack the judge, and was gunned down by the police officer.
Yeah.
In the courthouse.
That's why they have to get paid to do that. I mean,
but do you need an officer to do that?
Do you need an officer?
A police officer.
Yes, because officers have a bigger legal precedent to being able to handle situations in that amount of aggression, shall we say. If you hire an armed security guard, the chances are that they're still going to have a much harder legal case if they shoot a guy than if a cop does.
Not in a courthouse, though. Come on.
The courthouse is going to help because you've got security cameras and you got a lot more like trustable witnesses.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's still a harder case to fight because there's less legal precedent out there for security guards shooting people the correct way, the legal way.
Okay.
And then there's a lot more legal precedent out there for cops shooting people the correct way than there is the incorrect way.
So what you're telling me is that the courthouse feels the need to have police officers as guards because they want to cover their ass better.
I'm saying the police are technically part of the judicial branch. Therefore, it is part of their responsibility to protect the courthouses from any wrongdoing that may occur there. And because they are a representative, the judges are a representative of the government judicial branch, they're going to receive a disproportionate amount of hate than some other buildings.
That's true.
So they require more...
a higher level.
A higher level of...
Security and...
Yeah, security, I guess, is the way to put it. I was trying to avoid that word, but yeah.
It's security.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well...
And besides, I'm talking about Grant School District police officers.
Yeah.
You know? Like, school district police officers? Uh-huh. How do you even do that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, how does that even work out? You figure that you'd want to be, like, a cop of a city? Not of a school district?
Yeah, how does that work exactly?
It definitely feels like it's a lesser thing. Mm-hmm. And all the cops I've seen that are in that position are actually, like, surprisingly fit. So they're not fat asses, but they are a bit more chubby than normal cops. And they spend a lot more time just diddling around their cell phone, not paying attention.
Well, because what are they going to do? I mean, let's put it this way.
What are they going to do in Utah?
Yeah, exactly. Well, like, a district cop... well, you said there's a difference between a district cop and a school cop.
Because a school cop was a former actual police officer. It's kind of like... What happens is a police officer kind of retires, but then they get in this semi-retirement limbo by being a school police officer.
Yeah.
Because they technically represent the local police station. They're just stationed at the school.
In a more common way.
Normally, they're semi-retirees. Sometimes they're not.
Yeah. But
that's the thing. They're actual police officers.
Well, the most recent school cop I dealt with was... the way his department works is that the department isn't big, doesn't have enough people to handle every need, every specific job. So, and they don't have enough money either. So they rotate people, and so they have everyone learn every skill. With they spend 2 years, 3 years in one job, as a detective, and they move on to being, on a traffic cop, and then they move around. They move everyone around on purpose so they can apply them more easily, and they get more bang for their buck. And so he was, everyone in his department will be a school cop at one point because it's one of the jobs.
Well, the thing is, that's just the generalized way. That's the way a lot of departments do it. Is the way I said. But every department is run differently. Mm-hmm. Because technically speaking, the management of a department is an elected position.
Yeah.
So it's always going to be changing at some point.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of different departments run things very differently. Yeah. That's why things like Black Lives Matter doesn't really make too much sense. Because if a single department in a single town is running very shadily, the department next to that is going to be completely fucking different.
Absolutely.
They're going to be nothing alike.
Mm-hmm.
The only really, shady thing that you as a citizen can really fight against, besides, because the problem is, if there's not two people running for election to be the sheriff, then you have no choice. Right?
Yeah.
The guy just fucking wins.
Mm-hmm.
You can't vote to not have a sheriff, unfortunately. You should be able to, I think. Just like I think you should be able to vote to not have a president.
Well, if the president's ineffective in the current state.
No, I mean, you can kick him out of office, but I think straight off the ballot, you should have a position that's basically none of these fuckers are good. Not even that. Maybe just make it so you can push a button on the ballot machine to say, I don't like any of these options. Show me the weird options.
The weird options.
Yeah, I want to vote for these nuts.
That guy. These nuts.
Because no one else fucking fits the role. I mean, thank God Bernie actually fits the role, right?
Most.
The only two candidates that actually fit the role of president is Bernie and Trump. Because they are very driven. We've seen what it's like to have a president that doesn't have a good enough drive.
Yeah.
And we've had him for 8 years.
That's true. That's absolutely true. I'm not a hater of Obama.
I think he's done a lot of good, but I also think he's too big of a pussy.
He's a very big pussy. Exactly.
He's a very big pussy.
Very weak as a president.
He's not very good when it comes to foreign relations.
He gets bullied not only by other countries, but he gets bullied by his own country.
He gets bullied by his own country, but that's gonna be every president. I mean, he gets bullied by little micronations. Yeah. He gets bullied by postage stamp nations.
He gets pushed around, absolutely.
He gets pushed around too much by everybody because they're good politicians, and they look at him and instantly tell he's going to be a pushover.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But, regardless, police, they're an interesting topic. We can get back to them at some point.
Yeah.
But either way, this has been the Unknown Entity Podcast. I have been the Phantom One. This has been my co-host,
Sanchez.
Live from a Taco Bell, as always.
Fuck you.
Alright, see y'all later.